Hey everyone, Hannah here with Soch 101 Summer 2022. Today I'm making a video on an example, basically how to do your Film Friday presentation. So just kind of as an FYI, you get your 25 points for doing this, for recording it and doing all of the items that are in the syllabus. So you either do it or you don't, and that's how you get credit. I have this nice PowerPoint slide just to sort of help me remember all my talking points that I want to go over. So I encourage you to do the same. It's nice to have an image with you talking. And also, if you are one of the people who signed up for the same week as someone else, having something nice visually can potentially help you win your vote off for watching the video. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do slideshow. Okay, so the movie that I chose for Film Friday is Clueless. It's written and directed by Amy Heckerling, who did a few films in the 90s, sort of examining youth culture, teenage culture, stuff like that. It stars Alicia Silverstone, Stacey Dash, Brittany Murphy, and Paul Rudd. You should probably recognize at least some of those names, so you can tell that it's a mainstream blockbuster movie that was certainly very popular and sort of a cult classic when I was growing up as a proud millennial. Definitely, Amy is doing a social commentary on consumerism and capitalism. In particular, in terms of textbook definitions from the Stuff textbook, pay attention to conspicuous consumption and this idea that name brands and what you're purchasing and how you're spending your money, it tells us something more than just what those material goods are. It tells us something about the culture that we subscribe to, our value system, our worldview. We also learn something about your socioeconomic status when we look at your purchases and your consumption and how you're spending money, which is especially interesting in the United States. We are a country that prides itself or sort of doesn't like to talk about social class a lot of the time. And so it's sort of this invisible aspect of privilege and oppression that we often don't name. And yet these types of films do sort of provide social commentary on these issues. Another thing that relates to stuff we'll be talking about this semester is we're looking at youth subcultures, predominantly white youth subcultures as well. And this is something that I examine in my own research, looking at party schools and looking at, again, another youth subculture that's predominantly white, where there's a lot of illegal activities happening related to partying. So recreational drug use, underage drinking, and perhaps some other things like petty theft, just, sort of for the thrill of it, not necessarily because these youth need to be stealing things. Certainly the characters in Clueless don't need to, but it's more of that thrill-seeking, adrenaline type thing. Similarly, the film is based loosely on Jane Austen's novel Emma. And so again, this novel was a social commentary of that time. So we can start to see some parallels there. Of course, we all have to say whether or not our film passes the Bechdel test, which your film doesn't have to pass this test in order for it to be considered a Film Friday film, but it is something I want us to explore because it tells us something about representation. And we know representation matters because it helps to break down some of the inequities that exist in our social institutions. And so I'm happy to say Clueless does pass the Bechdel test. The three main characters are women with names. So you have Cher, Dion, and what is Brittany Murphy's character's name? Ty. And so you have women with names who talk about things other than boys. Yes, these teenage girls do talk about boys a lot, but they also talk about their grades, their concerns about their GPA, family issues. They also talk about trying to set up their English teacher and their history teacher. So there's a lot of different conversations happening that don't necessarily have to do with the boys in their lives. And that's really important because it shows that these women are real people with some depth, or, well, these characters are meant to be vapid, but still they have these other things happening in their lives beyond their love life. I would also say that there is somewhat better representation of characters of color in Clueless especially compared to other films from the 90s. One of the main characters is a black woman. And also the black characters in this film, including Dion and her boyfriend, they're not represented in stereotypical ways. So they're not poor. They're not living in, urban ghettos. They are wealthy. They are educated. And so I think that's also an important aspect of representation. Like, representation is good, but we also have to take into consideration our historically marginalized characters, like women, like characters of color. Are they being represented more accurately? And certainly we can be critical of how they're represented. Or are they there to serve sort of a token role? Like, well, we have these marginalized characters, so that should be enough. But yet they're being portrayed in really stereotypical ways, which we know can often be harmful, right? If we only see characters of color and women characters being portrayed stereotypically, that can actually do harm. And then the last thing I'll say, and this is an important one, if your film includes anything that could potentially be triggering for other folks, be sure to let us know in your Film Friday presentation. So in Clueless, there's at least one scene where there's some sexual harassment. It involves Cher being in the car with this guy from her school that has a crush on her. So just be aware of that. And then there is recreational drug use and underage drinking. So if those things bother you, you can not pay attention, get the cliff notes, get some notes from your classmates for the part of the movie you missed. But just as a friendly reminder, you should include these types of things in your Film Friday presentation. Remember, it's due at least 15 minutes before class on the Friday you signed up for. That way we can watch your presentation before we start watching the film on Friday, and it'll sort of help guide everyone else as they take their notes that they'll then submit for their participation grade, which all of the grading nuances are in the syllabus. So that's all I have for you. I look forward to seeing your presentations and watching movies with you. If you have any questions about this assignment, your presentation, or about taking notes for Film Friday, please feel free to reach out to me. And I look forward to watching Clueless with you all because it's one of my favorite movies. Have a good day. Bye.